He says you're chosen. He says you're unique. He says you were beautifully and wonderfully created. Tie your worth to that and stop tying your worth to your work or accomplishments.
Hello, welcome back to another episode of Wealth in Christ Show, a show where we inspire the masses to become financially free while building God's kingdom. On the show today, we have Ms.Angel Marie. Ms.Angel Marie is a content creator, a coach, and a coach who teach entrepreneurs to rise in their faith, mindset, and business strategy so they can achieve holistic success. In this episode, we'll discuss ways entrepreneurs can succeed in their faith and mindset and business. So thank you for being here, Ms. Marie.
Yes, absolutely. I'm excited. Let's do this.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. It's been a busy day, as are all days in the entrepreneurial world, as I'm sure many of those who are listening understand, but no complaints, all blessed and feeling good. How about you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Been a long week so far. It just started, but it's been a long week. But thank
Yeah,
God.
it's only what, Tuesday?
Yeah,
It's already a long week.
very a long week, but thank God to the strength to keep on going and pursuing things I need to get done.
That's right. That's the right headspace to have. I love that.
So my first question to start this conversation is, who is Ms.Angel?
Yeah, man. Angel Marie is so many things. There's this really popular TikTok concept going around where a lot of entrepreneurs are creating a video and they're responding to the reaction of when someone asks, "Who are you?" And every video is so funny because a lot of us don't know what to say, right? Because we're so many things, we wear so many hats, but I always find that funny. So yeah, Angel Marie, as you mentioned earlier, I would call myself a content creator and a holistic success coach, actually. And I use that word holistically on purpose because when I think of holistic, I think of a well-rounded point of view where I'm not just a coach helping you in one area of your life. I'm here to help you in multiple areas of your life just so that you can live abundantly and really step into God's calling for you. So content creator, holistic success coach. I'm a podcaster myself. I run my own podcast called Empowered Mission. And most recent hat that I've added on is a real estate investor. So a lot going on, but all good things.
That's really great. That's really great. So I want to ask, what inspired you to become a holistic coach?
Yeah, such a good question. I was thinking about this heavily this week as I was just going through some internal stuff and making sure that I was reflecting, just so that I was continuously growing in my emotional development. And I realized that when it comes to my why, when it comes to me stepping into being a holistic coach, it's because it's not just that I want to help people, it's that I have a really strong passion for helping people see their worth, helping people see their value, and helping people see that they have every capability to become a leader in the industry that they want to be in. I think that when God calls us to something big and great, or when our visions and dreams are big and great, a lot of times it's exciting, but it also feels overwhelming and scary, which is what causes people to step back, to fear, and to not, therefore step into God's calling for them. And I've just made it my mission to help people with that confidence and to help people with that peace as they pursue something that does feel very scary at times. And I'm so passionate about it because I've been there. I've been that girl who was filled with insecurities and depression and confusion. And because I'm on that journey of having come out of it and still am coming out of it, just dedicating myself to helping other people do the same.
Oh, that's really great. That's really great. And I want to add, just go back to what you first started. You're saying that you being a holistic coach is because you want to make sure people as entrepreneurs, business owner are well-rounded. And I
Yes.
want to ask, why is it important, or why do you find it important to focus on faith, mindset, and business? Because oftentimes you may just have a coach just for faith, You may just have a coach just for mindset and business, but why do you feel like all three are important for an entrepreneur to have?
Yes, such a good question. I believe that it's important when it comes to trying to become prosperous. That term or that word prosperity is found multiple times in the Bible. And I do believe that God does want us to prosper. But where I think people fall short is thinking that the word prosperity is only in relation to money or monetary value. And that's just not the case. Prosperity means a level of joy and peace that you're able to meet because of how much you've been able to work through in order to get there. So when I think of becoming prosperous, that's what I think. I think of, oh, prosperity is it hits on multiple points in life. It can hit on money, but it also can hit on joy. It also can hit on peace. It also can hit on community, family, where you're prospering exactly within your specific life. And I really want to teach entrepreneurs or people that have these big dreams that yes, let's chase after our money goals so that we can be financially free, but life is so much more than that, because we could chase after money all day and still feel empty, still feel confused, still feel conflicted in a wide variety of things. So my goal is to really target entrepreneurs because they're dedicating themselves to being leaders in the society. But if you want to be a successful leader, it can't just be about the money. It has to be about, well, where does your faith lie? Where does your mental health lie? And if those aren't in good places, then the entrepreneurs, AKA the leaders of so many industries, are going to be going into this downward spiral of darkness. And to pull them out of that so that they can continuously lead and continue to educate and be there for their audience, I really feel that that's the level of confidence and the level of leadership skills that God wants us to have. So yeah, I dedicate myself to that. I really, really care about helping people get to that point.
I 100% agree with you that, money is definitely important, but it shouldn't be your main focus. Oftentimes you see entrepreneur, they get to a certain level of success and it's basically everything rolls down for them, divorce,
Yes,
they lose their relationships. And I think it's very important, as people are on this journey of financial freedom to focus on
exactly.
yourself first, because what you do now, you master being disciplined, you master, able to solve problem when problems comes up. It's easier when when money's involved. I like to say that
Exactly.
money doesn't change people, money exposes people. And
Mhm.
oftentimes people think that money does the opposite, but money just exposes who you are when you have it. And if you don't have the inner side of you together, it can be very chaotic.
Yeah.
To
Yeah,
that side.
absolutely. And something I always love to say too is a lot of times we unintentionally or secretly are fiending after the lives or the lifestyles of the celebrities that we see. But it's like all you see is their money. All you see is the materialistic things that come out of that money. But you have no idea what their relationships are like, their family styles are like, how they're actually feeling internally. And all that stuff really matters too at the end of the day. So it's interesting because I feel like there's two views to that, of like making sure you're not money minded to the point where your mental health and your faith is going completely down the drain, but also making sure that you're not living in a poverty mindset. And I think that that can get really problematic, especially in the Christian community, because as Christians, people feel, oh, it's like this natural poverty mindset where we want to be generous and we don't want to fiend after money. So we're not going to strive towards financial freedom, when that's just not the case. You should strive for financial freedom. You should work hard. Like God does call you to do that. But at the end of the day, we can't view money as evil, because money is not evil. The love of money is evil. Two completely different things. So it's like finding that unique headspace of, okay, I want to be prosperous financially so that I can steward it well without loving money so much to the point where it takes lead in everything I do. So it's an interesting balance and middle ground to find. But again, that's why I'm just so passionate about teaching people more about that.
No, you're 100% right. And I want to ask, how can people find that, that fine line between, wanting to take care of themselves spiritually and mentally, but also being hungry enough to see that money is a great tool to spread the gospel. Money is a great tool to help those people that are in need. So how can people find that fine
Yeah.
line?
Yeah, I would say practice. It is a daily battle because you have to constantly take yourself out of the worldly perspective of being so money oriented and put yourself instead in that spiritual perspective of how you would want to leverage money to help the world. Because at the end of the day, wanting to become financially free or wanting to become wealthy should have nothing to do with you. It should have everything to do with how you want to steward that money to help other people. And because you lead with that intention of using that money to help other people, then God will profit you. That profit will naturally start to come because you led with such good intentions. And I think that that's so important. But it's, to be truthful, it is a daily battle. We are in this world. There's a lot going on in this world right now, and it is really difficult to take ourselves out of that competition every single day. But it is a daily battle that's worth fighting. And it's a daily battle where victory is already promised because you're putting in the work to fight in that daily battle. And I would say just some best practices day to day to help take yourself out of that worldly mindset and into a spiritual one is to always bring everything to God. Everything. I know for me, I talk to God like he's my best friend. I don't talk to him like he's yeah, he's the almighty righteous father, of course, but I also talk to him like he's my best friend. So I'm going to tell him when I'm frustrated. I'm going to tell him what I don't understand. I'm going to tell him what's confusing me or what's making me sad. I'm just going to be blatantly honest and let him know. And it's not giving me a right or a reason to complain to God. It's giving me peace of mind that I'm able to let God into my feelings because that's what he wants. So I think day to day in those daily battles, letting God into your feelings, letting God into your work life, right? Like even something simple as before every meeting, say a quick prayer. Before you do some sort of social media post, say a quick prayer. I literally do that for every single one of my Instagram posts. Like before I post, I do like a quick 10-second prayer over it. And because I want my intention, I want God to be over that post. I don't care how many people see it. I don't care how many views, as long as it's touching the lives of at least one or a couple of people that God chose to see that video. So it's like little practices like that in your day to day can help you fight that daily battle and come out victorious.
Hey, family, I hope you enjoyed this episode so far. On December 17th, I'll be hosting a free panel discussion titled The Road to Success. This panel discussion will take place at CAC Mountain of Blessing, New York, and this panel discussion will feature Carlene Robinson from episode 15, Derek Skeet from episode 4, and Jamal Boyd from episode 49. Click the link down below to RSVP for this event. Now back to the episode.
No, you're 100% right. And I do commend you for, praying over your posts and before you get into meetings. Then that's something I should definitely incorporate into my daily lifestyle. And I want to add, being that you've been coaching a lot of different entrepreneurs, what would you say is the biggest challenge you see as content creators and business owners face to succeed,
Ooh,
with their fate and their finance?
yeah, that's a good one. The competition game. That's what I would say. I would say the biggest struggle is that as entrepreneurs, we are always playing that competition game. Anyone that you see on Instagram or anyone that you see on TV or anyone that you walk by that has something that you don't, or looks like they have more money in their bank account than you don't, anything like that, we internalize it and we compare ourselves to that person, whether you realize it or whether you don't. And it's because as entrepreneurs, we have this leadership tendency of striving, right? We're striving, we're trying to get to the specific destination. And because we're led so much with that striving mentality, it's so easy to compare ourselves to other people because they have what we are trying so hard to strive after. So I would say that that is the biggest thing. And we have to be very careful and be very aware in when our mind is playing that competition game. When you are unaware, you just let your mind run with it. And that just goes down a rabbit hole of thoughts of what you're not and what you won't be and why this person has that when you don't, what makes them special. And that is a dangerous place to be because the devil can work all up in that and continue to lead you the wrong way. But just making sure that with that competition game, we're aware and we're grasping those thoughts right away and we're holding them captive and we're able to reignite that fire in us and say, you know what, let me stop right here. I don't need to compare. This person's journey is different from mine. God has me on a special path that's going to lead me to great things. And boom, you just let that go because you are much more aware. So I would say that's the biggest struggle, and what I would encourage any entrepreneur to focus on is learning to get out of playing that competition or comparison game.
No, it's funny that you say that, and I guess we can talk about it here. This competition thing, because I can see how easy it is to fall into that behavior, that mindset of, always comparing yourself to the next person, next business. And it leads me to ask, I guess I want to hear your input on this, is when is success enough? How much success do I necessarily need
Mm,
um, before I'm like, yeah, this is it? Or how much money do I necessarily need? Because when you look at life, there's always someone doing better than you. There's
yeah,
always someone more successful than you. And just in my mind, just like when I do reach these financial goals I have, what am I going to want to do next? Am I going to be satisfied or do I want to keep going?
right.
Um, I want to ask, how can people deal with that? Wanting to always be better, that competition versus you, uh,
Yeah.
internal competition that you have to go through.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that's so difficult because there, in reality, there's no such thing as a destination. We so often are in our minds thinking about where we want to be versus where we are now. Oh, if I could just have $1 million. Oh, if I could just hit six figures in my business. Oh, if I could just have that dream home in that exact city in that exact neighborhood that I want. It's like we're always thinking about the just, like if I could just get this, if I could just get there. When in actuality, it's like you get there, right? Let's say you get there and you're enjoying that season and that accomplishment for a few weeks. And then guess what? Your mind is on to the next thing. Now there's another destination that you're trying to get to. And that is very important to understand and to realize when your mind starts to do that, because not only are you bypassing the accomplishments or the blessings that God gave you, but you start to be on this never-ending cycle of dissatisfaction. Like you're never fully satisfied, you're never fully content, which is why you're always striving to the next big thing. And this is also what I feel like people need to understand is that you shouldn't, there's always going to be callings on your life, right? Like if you grow your business to six figures, great. Ask God what's next. It's not for selfish reasons. It's the calling that God put on your life. Who does he want you to reach? What does he want you to focus on to help X amount of people or this audience in this space? And I think that's so essential to realize, because as we pursue entrepreneurship and as we pursue our goals, we also have to make sure that those goals are in alignment with what God actually wants us to do. So when it comes to that goal chasing, just making sure that you are content along that entire journey, you're content, you're appreciative. And even though you might be chasing after new goals, always making sure that they're in alignment with what God is actually wanting you to do. Because at the end of the day, it can't be about you. It just can't. Like, yes, you want to make all this money, you want to have this house, you want to be successful. But when you think about the way that Jesus lived, his life was not catered to himself. His life was dedicated to everyone else around him. He dedicated himself to helping others. And that's not to say you need to dismiss you or not take care of you. I truly do believe in self-care, but it's about how and what your lifestyle is like. And that those goals that you're chasing, just making sure that they're in alignment with truly helping people and where God is calling you to go.
Wow. And I'm glad you mentioned self-care, because that's also like something that I still have not had a proper way of grasp. They might as well ask me a question on how to explain as an entrepreneur what does self-care means. I want to ask, what does self-care mean? Because you mentioned a lot during this interview that it's not so much about you, but you also got to take care of yourself.
Right.
So what is that fine line
Yeah.
between self-care and also realizing it's not all about you?
That's a great question. So for me, I define self-care as a way for God to pour into me so that I can pour back out. So again, it goes back to other people. Pour into me so that I have the energy, I have the capacity to pour back out to other people. So I take a self-care day at least once a week because Lord knows we all need those. Like we really do. But and I don't like have a specific schedule that I do every week. It just depends on how I'm feeling, as long as I'm deeply incorporating God and reflection periods throughout that day. So doing that and doing that peace of mind throughout the day allows God to pour into me, to speak into me, to for me to find rest within my spirit, so that the next day I'm launching. I have the energy now. I'm able to sustain another crazy busy week of entrepreneurial tasks and conversations and interviews and content and all the things that come with being in entrepreneurship in today's world. But the reason why I was able to sustain that is because I took the time to care for myself. We need that as people. The goal isn't to burn out. And as entrepreneurs, we will burn out quickly if we are constantly helping people and pouring into them without allowing God to pour back into us at the same time. So I would say, again, it's just all about knowing your internal self and understanding your triggers. Like, when do you feel triggered that burnout is about to happen? When do you feel triggered that you are starting to pull back from people or pull back from being selfless? And at that point, it's you stepping into that headspace of, okay, I need rest. I need to take time to reflect and think before I go back out and do what God is calling me to do for the greater good.
I like that. I like how you explained that. I don't think I had anyone explain that. I definitely appreciate that explanation. We'll run with that.
Yeah.
God pour into you so you can pour into others. And one thing I'm hearing is seem like also repeating theme is about reflection. You know,
Yeah.
the points of reflection. And I want to add, how do you reflect personally? Because oftentimes people reflect in so many different ways, just like, oh, I'm gonna sit down for 5 minutes.
Right.
Okay, this is not working right, and just go. But how would you suggest people to reflect, to take in and really get that rest and that peace that they really
Yeah.
need to keep
Yeah,
going?
for sure. I think it varies depending on the person, but I would say I think that I align it a lot with emotions. Um, I think as people and as entrepreneurs, many times we dismiss our feelings. We dismiss what doesn't make us feel good. We dismiss any of that because we don't want to feel it, because we want to feel good. So of course we're going to dismiss it. But those reflection periods give you the opportunity to just feel, to just feel. And I always remind myself that God gave us emotions for a reason. It's okay to feel. It is okay to feel and to reflect on why you feel that way. So when I think of reflection, I think of tuning into your emotions, but then I also think of tuning into the root of those emotions. So if I'm taking a day to reflect, like I'm just going to give an example just because I love being honest. I went on one of my self-care days, one of my reflection days, I went for a run. I was like, you know what? I want to get some exercise. It's going to make me feel good. It's going to feel good. Halfway through that run, I just started randomly crying, like randomly. And when I started crying, I was like literally running, like crying. And I'm like, hey, this is weird. People in the car are probably looking at me like, is this girl in pain? Is she okay? But I realized like I stopped, and then I had to reflect on the root of why I was crying. What is the root of this emotion that I'm feeling right now? And that's what I did. I peeled back layer after layer after layer. Oh, this triggered my tears because this happened today. And you know what? This happened today because of XYZ. And I think that happened because my childhood trauma was yada, yada, yada. So it's like you're peeling back these layers and reflecting on you and how you're feeling and what's really going on. And this allows you to step into that area of being honest with God, of being honest with yourself, and realizing the work that needs to be done so that you can step out of that, right? You can step out of those dark head spaces or moments that are making you feel sad, right? You face it head on, you deal with it, you go through levels of forgiveness, and then you allow God to take you out of that step by step.
Hey family, I hope you're enjoying this episode so far. And if you are and you have yet to subscribe to us here on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button. And also, if you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts and you have yet to leave us a 5-star review, please do so. Now back to the episode. Nah, I'm really enjoying this interview. And I want to add, because you mentioned going back to you just said about just being in touch with yourself and just pulling layers back and back, and so you can be a well-rounded entrepreneur and dealing with yourself in there. I can just imagine it takes a certain amount of faith in God, while you're on this journey, trying to hit 6 figures, grow your business,
Yeah.
also be in touch of who you are, making sure you're living God's given purpose for you. So I want to ask, how has your faith helped you in this journey?
Yeah. Oh, man. I would not be able to do anything that I'm doing right now without my faith at all. Um, Faith is the reason why I've been able to grow in confidence, why I've been able to make risky decisions that made no sense at the time, and why I was able to reap the benefits of those blessings because I decided to take those leaps of faith. It is just, it changes everything, everything. And when I say faith, I'm talking about faith in God, and I'm talking about faith in the God that lives in you. So having faith that you are more than capable of achieving anything because God does live inside of you, no matter how impossible that dream or task might feel. So if for any, and that's why I dedicate myself as a coach to not just helping entrepreneurs grow a business or monetize their business, but to grow their faith, because that's what it's going to take to sustain the journey ahead. Having $100,000, making $100,000 in your business, great. You got there, huge milestone. But if your faith isn't in the right place, that, as I mentioned earlier, that can lead to some really dark places. So I would say that is everything, especially for entrepreneurs, especially for those that are called to be leaders in today's society.
That's what that you're 100% right. And one thing that keeps coming to my mind and is, oftentimes in this journey of entrepreneurship, being a content creator, often hear people say is about you have to be consistent. You
Oh,
have to
yes.
consistently show up, you have to consistently post, you have to consistently chase after a sell. And now, like I'm in this interview, I'm just like, what is the fine line being trying to be consistent to put yourself in the best position to succeed versus understanding that you also can ignore your emotion, you can ignore that you're tired, you're overwhelmed, you're burned out. So what is the fine line if you do?
Oh, yeah, that's probably one of my favorite questions that people ask me for sure. So here's the thing. You do need to be consistent. You do. I think trying to escape consistency is not the goal, because at the end of the day, in order to, the Bible tells us faith without work is dead, and vice versa. Work without faith is dead, like we just talked about. So being able to show up consistently is going to be easier if you're aligned with what God is actually calling you to do. Because I think people fail to realize that if they're struggling with consistency, yeah, it could be an issue. Some people have, ADHD, and that helps them with focus. Some people struggle with productivity, and that's one thing. But a failure, or not a failure, but I would say the habit of not being consistent could also stem from you not being in your purpose. You're not doing what God is calling you to do. So there's no fire igniting in you. There's no passion there because you're not stepping out on what God told you to do. I'll give you an example. Before entrepreneurship, I was in the music industry. I was a singer and I was ready to become an artist within the music industry at that time. And as I was pursuing that career, I started to lose passion week after week, month after month. And at first, when that was happening, I thought it was because I didn't feel like it was going well. Like I thought it was because, all the rooms and the execs and the meetings that I was in, they just didn't turn out the way that I wanted them to, whatever. I thought that's what it was, but it wasn't. It was because God did not call me to that. He didn't. He called me to something else. And I needed to find the courage to step into what that was and then find the confidence to actually do it and reap the benefits of actually doing it. Sorry, it's my dog. But it's just so essential to be able to lean into that level of understanding. And that could definitely take time. That can definitely take time. So all in all, I think that consistency is important in whatever you're doing, but then also being able to gauge, okay, you know what? I need God to pour back into me because I'm burning out. I'm tired. This is a conversation I have with myself every single week. Every week. I'm not kidding. After, probably around, because I go hard Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday night. By Friday night, Saturday, I'm dead. I'm like, I don't want nobody to talk to me. I don't want to go out with any of my friends. I don't even want to hang out with my own boyfriend. Like I'm just dead. But that's okay. Like I used to joke and be like, oh, I'm just a grandma. I'm just going to stay in because it's Friday night. No, like I realize that's my spirit. Like that's my spirit saying, you've been working really hard this week. You don't need to be consistent tonight or tomorrow in posting or doing whatever business to do's. Rest. Take a step back. It's okay if you don't post today. It's okay if you don't do anything on your to-do list today. Give your spirit what it needs.
Nah, I definitely like the way you the two different perspectives about being consistent. One that it could be God just telling you this may not be for you because you don't have the passion or the drive. Because all you hear on social media from a lot of coaches or mentors, keep going. But oftentimes, people are not really working in their purpose. They're not working in their God-given purpose. And I feel like that's important to understand when God is not calling you to something. So you just don't do things and, at a loss. And you keep mentioning gaining confidence, the importance of having confidence. So how does a person gain confidence to walk in their God-given purpose? Like you mentioned that, you was a singer before and now to do a completely switch to coaching, I could just imagine like, dang, that really would have not, I'm sure you built a brand, a face about everybody seeing you as a singer and to now being a coach. I can imagine you have to gain some type of confidence.
Yeah.
And not care what people have to say. So how were you able to do that? And how would you encourage someone to do that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Two things come to mind right away. First thing, allowing God to speak to you in order to bring that confidence your way. And the second thing is community, surrounding yourself with people who are going to uplift you and remind you of who you are, remind you of your worth, remind you of your gifts and talents, because sometimes we forget, especially in a world where we're always playing the comparison game, right? So just going back to the first thing of allowing God to speak to you. For me, when I was realizing that I needed to make a career shift, not out of impatience, but because I felt like there was a spiritual shift that was taking place. I had to spend a lot of time allowing God to speak to me. And you might be thinking, okay, well, I pray, like, of course, like I already do that. I already pray. But when I say speak to you, I'm talking about the fact that you are making room for God to be able to do so. A lot of times we don't make room for him to speak to us. We make room for us to speak to him, right? By praying and, in our thoughts and all that stuff. But we have to make room for God to speak back. And if our thoughts if our mind is constantly clouded with all of these thoughts and all of these things that we can't seem to escape in our mind, that does not make room for God. If we are constantly busying ourselves with all these to-do lists and trying to figure it all out on our own, that does not make room for God. We have to make room for God to speak. So something that I had to learn, and I hated it, but I had to learn how to just be still. I have a hard time being still. I start to think, dang, I'm so bored, or oh my gosh, can I just be doing something right now? But I had to learn to just sit there and to be okay with sitting there. And any thought that came to my mind, I had to let it come in and then let it go right back out. I couldn't let it just sit there and then start to cloud up into a big jumble of all these other thoughts. So I really had to learn to be still, even if it was for 5-10 minutes a day. Be still. Like, and doing just taking this meditative position of breathing and listening to the things around you that God put in this world that we just don't even think about. Like listening to your breathing, that's so natural, listening to the birds outside, listening to the random sounds around you, and making room for God to just speak. And that was really powerful. And it even got to the point for me where I started journaling what I felt like I was hearing. So I would take time to be still for 5-10 minutes, and then I would just write. And I would just allow God to control my hand of like, what do you like? I'm just going to write. I don't know what word's coming next, but I'm just going to write. And whatever that is, I'll read over what I just wrote. And 99% of the time after I read what I just wrote, I end up in tears because I know that this is God speaking to me because I gave him room to do so. So that's the first thing. Second thing is community. A lot of times as entrepreneurs, especially, we go these certain paths or these routes alone because we think we're in it by ourselves. But we have to remember that God created community for a reason. So if you go back to the way beginning of the Bible, right? God created man, he created Adam. But what did he say? He said, it is not good for man to be alone. That line, people bypass that line so much, but that is so powerful. It is not good for anyone to be alone. Having community, the right kind of community, is so important. So having people that are going to uplift you, remind you of who you are and your worth, especially when you feel down, is so essential. And having the right people that are going to be able to give you the feedback and the constructive criticism that you need to become the person that God is calling you to become. So finding leaders and mentors to help you, finding genuine, true friendships to help you is so essential. So those would be my top two.
Wow. I definitely got to listen to this interview a couple of times. 'Cause I definitely like this conversation because oftentimes you don't necessarily talk about the spiritual side, the wellness side, oftentimes about money. And I feel like just from this conversation, I'm grasping that it's important to focus so much on your faith that if you get to a certain point in your faith and your mindset, it's much easier to thrive in business.
Mm-hmm.
Your faith and you're connected to God, it's much easier to know, discern that this partnership is for you, this business is for you, this relationship, this interview. I feel like it's very important for people to actually connect to God and understand what does God call them to be.
Yeah.
And I guess my last question, for those who are listening and those who are watching, is what a typical day like for you? Because we mentioned a lot about reflecting, you wear a lot of different hats, and I just imagine like how do you find time in your busy schedule to still be in touch with God, to
Yeah.
still, be mindful and intentional about praying over your posts before you post
Mhm.
it. So how does your typical day look like?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's so my typical day starts with spending time with God in the morning. And this has been a challenge for me. And I think it's a challenge for a lot of entrepreneurs is the first thing we want to do is, okay, let me get up and let me go to the gym. Let me get up and let me look at my phone. Let me read these emails. Let me do this. But it's like, you have to give God your first. The minute you open your eyes, like for me, I take my dog out, but then after that, I am on my couch, reading the Bible, being still, sitting in silence, and just spending time with God. I'm giving him my first. And then throughout the day, I do my tasks. I work with my clients. I have my meetings. I work on projects. This is probably the hardest place in the workday. It's the hardest place to bring God in your workday, whether it's 9 to 5, 10 to 6, whatever hours you're working. It's hard because you're so focused. You're so focused. And you got to accomplish this. You got to do this. It's hard. So it's like I'm working on pushing myself, pushing my spirit to take authority over my mind so that I can have a moment of prayer, so that I can take even 5 seconds to say, thank you, God, boom, like 5 seconds to just thank him for something, or 2 minutes to pray about a post or anything like that. And one of my favorite things too is trying to be more intentional in breaks in between each hour or two. So every couple of hours, it's like stepping back and just breathing, reflecting on the work that I did and being proud of that, and then thanking God for it, or saying whatever prayer, or even if I'm frustrated from that project, taking it to God, stuff like that. But it is very challenging, right? It is very challenging. I struggle with that too, but trying to be more intentional and incorporating that within my actual work focuses. And then afterwards, I take some time to study, depending on what it is that I'm trying to learn in that moment, in business or life, anything like that. And then whatever I decide to do at night, I'll do that. And then just before I go to bed, making sure that I'm praying again and giving the whole day to God, this whole day that he blessed me with. So all that to say, it's hard, but it is a daily discipline. It's a daily discipline to allow your spirit to take authority over your mind and over your work self, over your entrepreneur tasks. It's a daily discipline. It takes time. It takes practice. Definitely something to give yourself grace over because it takes time and practice. But the most important thing is just doing it, just practicing it. At one point, I was having such a hard time practicing it that I was like, you know what? I need to take this seriously. So I literally would schedule it in my phone. I would schedule alarms on my clock every few hours to say, pray to God, or, step, like it would, there was an alarm with all caps that said, step away from work right now, exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. But I did that because I needed that blaring loud reminder to say, it's okay to step back. Let me go take this to God. Let me take a second to pray before I dive back into more stuff.
I definitely want to say thank you, Angel, for this time. Thank you for your openness and vulnerability. I want to quickly give you the opportunity to talk about your coaching program for those who may be interested in joining your coaching program. How can they learn more about it? If you can discuss that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So for those of you that are listening, I run a couple of different coaching opportunities. I work with one-on-one students, and then I do group coaching opportunities if those are available throughout the seasons. And in that way, you are able to sign up. And normally we start with a free consultation. You hop on a call with me. We'll talk about your needs, your desires as an entrepreneur. And then from there, I build a coaching plan completely catered to you. So you can sign up for that on my website. It's just under itsangelmarie.com/coaching. And if you head to those options, you can sign up. There are going to be a few more upcoming learning opportunities in the near future. So my website will be updated with those very soon too.
Okay. And where do you see yourself in the next 5 years?
Oh, it's a good one, man. In the next 5 years, I see myself, I see myself having a community of 10,000 students. So I'm launching a membership opportunity, and God had put this opportunity on my heart for a while, and I'm in the middle of building that. So I see myself having a community of at least 10,000 entrepreneurs that are then I'm raising up to be the leaders in the industry that I know they can be, so that they can teach and make an impact for each of their audiences. So hopefully having 10,000 students or entrepreneurs that I've been able to impact, and therefore impacting the greater good of let's shoot for 1 million. Let's shoot for big numbers here. 1 million people. I would say that that's my 5-year goal. And of course, there's also the little internal or external goals like family and internally just getting better and better every day at maintaining my peace, no matter the chaos that's going on around me.
I definitely want to say thank you again, Ms.Angel Marie. If you do have a closing word of wisdom for someone who may be still on the side, they have went through this whole interview, heard your story, but they don't feel like they can do it. They don't feel like, they can, attain to their needs, find time to rest because, everyone's telling us we got to keep going, this hustle and grind mindset. What would you say to that person?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say to stop tying your worth to your work and instead tie your worth to who God says you are. And if you go back to scripture, or even if you look up, like you could Google, who does God say that I am? And there will be, there's like specific wall art pieces that clearly say it. He says you're prosperous. He says you're chosen. He says you're unique. He says you were beautifully and wonderfully created. Tie your worth to that and stop tying your worth to your work or accomplishments. Because if you do, then if you feel like you haven't accomplished enough, or if you don't have the business that you want, then you're not going to feel worth it or good enough. And that's just completely false. So work hard, have faith, but always remind yourself that you're worth it simply because God made you on purpose for a purpose. Tie your worth to that.
Amen, amen. And for those who are listening and watching on YouTube, I hope you guys, don't see as another guest on the show, another entrepreneur talking about their story. But I hope this encouraged you to take some rest. I hope this encouraged you to reflect. I hope this encouraged you to take some time and spend some time with God. And if you're looking for a community of Christians who are working towards becoming financially free, look no further and join the Pray Invest group. And look forward to seeing you guys next week. And thank you again, Ms. Angel Marie.
Of course, this was fun. Thanks so much.